In this lesson, we'll continue to create some layer comps for a web page concept. So just continuing on here to create a few layer comps for our fake website called junkazon.com. So just kind of a funny, silly name that we thought we would use here for this fake project that we're working on. So in the previous lesson, we ended by adding a layer style to the Junkazon logo. And so what I'd like to do is take the comp that we currently have right here, which is titled My Junk Logo Appearance. We'd like to create another comp based off of this one where we don't see the QR codes. Again, this is probably just another iteration that the client may want to see this little shopping cart area minus those codes. So the group associated with this comp is right here, the My Junk group. And then we have some different junk layers, junk 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to go into this group, the first one right there. And right here we have the layer for that QR code for that first row. And then we also have another layer beneath it, which is just the shape, the same shape underneath it. So I'm turning off the visibility of both of those. And I'm basically going through this process just to show you the visibility aspect of working with layer comps on a more practical project like this instead of just shapes, but also to show you just how tedious and cumbersome this can be, especially if you were having to switch between a lot of different iterations. Ultimately, you would probably resort to duplicating a lot of information, duplicating a lot of groups, and even still it can be very tedious and cumbersome. And so just now focusing on this last group. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new comp, just as we've done before. And we'll go ahead and call this something a little bit more appropriate. So something like My Junk QR codes, I think would be fine. Again, making sure that we have visibility check mark, because that's what we're doing is we're making a change to the visibility of specific layers in this case. And again, as I mentioned as early as lesson 2, I just kind of like to have all these check marked. It doesn't hurt to have them all checked. That way I don't have to worry about forgetting. I don't just click OK. So regardless if you're making changes to one or all of them, it doesn't hurt to have them all checked. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, so switching back between this new comp that we have here and the previous one, you can see the difference. And I'd also like to switch out a couple of these thumbnails that we have over here as well. So going back to this junk group over here, you can see the thumbnail. It's a kind of an old busted TV. We've got another one right above it. So I might want to turn that on, okay? And if we go to that next junk group, junk 2, I have another thumbnail as well for the second row. It's a very old school phone, right? All right, very cool. So how about we save another comp for that? And so I'll call this something like My Junk New Thumbs. And I'll just go ahead and click OK. All right, so you can see the difference right there. So now let's talk about something that could occur. It could even happen by mistake sometimes, but you definitely want to be aware of it. So as I mentioned, if you add new layers, like we did in our lesson with creating a new layer and adding a snowflake shape, and you toggle between previous comps that you've created, it's not going to show up because that layer didn't exist at that point in time when you saved those comps. So just because it doesn't show up in those previous ones doesn't mean it's not existing over here in the layers panel, right? What happens if you physically come over here to the layers panel and delete a layer? So here is that new layer that we added, that new thumbnail that we made visible. Okay, and this is a layer that I added for this project file titled 04_begin. If you're still working on the project file from the previous lesson, 03_begin, you will not find these two new thumbs. Okay, I've added these for this project file. And also all of the images that are associated with this project, they're going to be in a folder in your project files titled reference file. So feel free to play around with those for this project. But what happens if you come over here to the previous image, the one that was right beneath it of those car doors, and you have it selected and you hit the trash can button here at the bottom of your layers panel and you delete it? Look what happens. You get all of these exclamation points, and that just looks very concerning, okay? So if I go up here, say, to the My Junk comp here at the top, it's not visible, okay? And even if I come back down here to our newest comp, and I were to hide the visibility, of course, of that new one that we have above it, that new thumb, it's not visible either. So what this little exclamation point is signifying is you've made a critical change over in your layers that are associated with this project. The only way you're going to get rid of that is if you actually click on it, and that basically lets your layer comp know that I'm cool with that change. It's okay. I authorize that, right? So be very mindful of coming in here and deleting stuff if you're working on a particular comp, because that could directly affect another comp that you've previously worked on, okay? So in this case, I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to take a few steps back here to ensure that I no longer have that deleted. So just hitting Alt, Control Z on your keyboard, you can take multiple steps back like that. So up until this point, we basically spent a lesson getting acquainted with layer comps, how we can create them, how they function, and then we spent a couple of lessons just kind of applying them here to something that's a little bit more practical, so a concept for a web page layout here. In our next lesson, we're going to talk about a few things that you cannot do with layer comps that you probably would like to do, and just a workaround, how we can get around that. So stick around, and we're going to tackle that in our next lesson. We'll see you then.